Hello, my name is Spencer and welcome back to my hobby channel. I'm learning to storytell through miniature dioramas. This is a WizKids mummy. Upon a closer inspection, it has the head of a crocodile, which means it's actually closer to the Egyptian god Sobek. In this diorama, I will depict Sobek defending a small Egyptian shrine. I cut a piece of XPS foam to be the base of the diorama and then cleaned up the sides with my utility knife. I then cut up some scrap XPS foam into long strips on my hot wire cutter. Then once I had enough strips, I then cut them into smaller, brick-sized pieces. Then I put all my bricks into a container with a few real rocks from my driveway and shook them up to give them a natural weathering effect. On the left is a brick that got shaken, and on the right is one fresh off the cutting table. Clearly you can see one is a little bit more irregular. Now we can move to the initial assembly phase of the project. With all these bricks, this became closer to a Lego project than I had initially planned. With the foundation of the shrine down, I trimmed the edges so that it would match up with the base. For the secondary assembly phase, I built up the shrine off of its foundation. To create pillars for the front of the shrine, I sanded down a few longer beams into columns. Overall, I got a decent column shape made up. I then put the column onto the shrine where it would go and marked it to where it would need to be cut. I then glued down two equal-sized columns into place and put a beam over the two, marking it again where the beam would need to be cut. Once cut, I glued it into place. Using the same edit 3 times in one video may be a bit much, but oh well, this project reminded me too much of Legos. Now that the assembly is done, we can prime the project using a zenithal prime. Next, I made up a terrain paste with plaster, Mod Podge, and paint. Once I got the consistency that I wanted, I then added some fine ballast to give the paste a sandy desert texture. I then spread the paste around the base where I didn't add any of the bricks. I used my gloved hand and a popsicle stick to spread the paste around. I then re-primed the terrain so I could mix the terrain paste in better with the overall diorama. I then used my X-Acto knife to carve in some quote-unquote hieroglyphics into the entrance of the shrine. This ended up being a little bit more difficult than I was anticipating, given the fact that hieroglyphics are more detailed than I can freehand with an X-Acto knife on this scale, but ultimately I did end up with a product that I was satisfied enough with. To paint the sand, I covered it entirely in Xandri dust paint from Citadel's color line. I also painted the shrine the same color as the desert sand. For the sand, I added Aragos Dunes contrast paint to the entirety of the sand. For the shrine, I added Skeleton Horde contrast paint to the entirety of it. For some villains of the diorama, I had these army men lying around and I got inspiration for them. The overall vision for these soldiers is British soldiers that are trying to collect antiquities from the tomb. I had the opportunity to go to the British Museum in London a while ago, and one thing that really stood out to me was how many Egyptian artifacts are in there, and so why it would make sense that Sobek would be repelling these soldiers from the tomb. Moving to Sobek, I covered all of his wraps with a vague tan tone. I then painted the thing on his neck gold. I then painted his head as if it was a reptile, which is fun because I don't really use this color palette that often. I then covered all of his wraps in skeleton horde to show off the details and make him look similar to the shrine. One soldier wouldn't have been much of a fight for a god, so I made sure to make him some reinforcements. Once everyone was completed, I freed them of their bases. And then I affixed them to the diorama. Once completely dried, we can then paint the sides black and move to some glamour shots. I'd like to take this moment to say thank you to each of you who stayed through till the end of this video. I really appreciate the support. I'll catch you all later and tell you another story to tell. See you around.